Daniel wasn't supposed to be home that night. He had told me he'd be away until Sunday, and I had let myself believe I had more time. Time to figure out what I was doing, to convince myself that it wasn't wrong. But time had run out. I heard the door open before I saw him. A quiet click, followed by footsteps. My heart stilled. For a moment, I told myself it could be a neighbor or just my imagination. But then I turned, and there he was. Daniel stood in the doorway, his travel bag still slung over one shoulder, his face unreadable. His dark brown eyes flicked from me to Ethan, who sat beside me on the couch, his shirt crumpled on the floor. It wasn't hard to put the pieces together. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and perfume, betrayal lingering like a ghost in the room. Ethan bolted upright, scrambling to grab his clothes, mumbling something incoherent. But Daniel didn't spare him a glance. He didn't acknowledge him at all. His gaze locked onto mine, and in that moment, I wished he would scream, shout, curse, throw something, anything. That would have been easier than the silence. My voice barely came out, small and broken. Daniel, He raised a hand, stopping me before I could say another word. Slowly, he let his bag slide from his shoulder, setting it down carefully on the floor. Every movement was precise, as if he were forcing himself to stay in control. Ethan remained frozen in the corner, half-dressed, torn between running and staying. I should go, he muttered, but Daniel still didn't look at him. Ethan hesitated only a second longer before grabbing his shoes and slipping out the door. And just like that, we were alone. The apartment felt suffocating in its silence. I tried to breathe, but it felt as though my lungs had caved in. Nothing I said would be enough to fix this. Daniel didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. He should have been furious. He had every right to be. But instead, he just looked exhausted. I came home early, he finally said, his voice eerily calm. I wanted to surprise you. I swallowed hard. Daniel, A quiet, humorless chuckle escaped him. It's funny, he mused. I always thought that if this ever happened, I'd be angry. I thought I'd yell, break things, demand answers. He shook his head. But I don't feel any of that. His voice was too steady, too composed, and that terrified me more than if he had screamed. I just feel tired. And that was when it truly hit me. Not in some dramatic, cinematic way, but in the slump of his shoulders, the slight crack in his voice. I had destroyed something we had spent years building, and I had done it thoughtlessly, selfishly. I never meant to hurt you, I whispered. He exhaled, dragging a hand over his face. For the first time, he looked away. But you did. The silence between us was unbearable. I wanted to reach for him, to explain, though I didn't even know what excuse I could possibly give. But before I could say another word, he turned and walked to the dresser. My stomach dropped as he pulled open the top drawer, retrieving a small velvet box. My breath hitched. I had seen that box before, weeks ago, tucked in the back of his drawer, when I was looking for socks. I hadn't opened it, but I had known. I had imagined the moment he would get down on one knee, the way I would cry and say yes, the way everything would be perfect. Daniel flipped the box open, revealing a simple yet beautiful diamond ring. His fingers trembled slightly as he held it between us. His expression was unreadable. I was going to propose this weekend, he said quietly. I spent months planning it. Tears blurred my vision, my throat tightening to the point of pain. Daniel, please. He snapped the box shut with a quiet finality, slipping it into his pocket. He exhaled slowly, as if forcing himself to breathe, then finally met my eyes one last time. I hope he was worth it, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Then he turned and walked out the door. He never came back, and that, more than anything, shattered me.